Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here. I am excited because today I get to use my tire machine for the first time. You might have seen the video that I posted about balancing tires with my tire balancer, my new tire balancer. I'll link that down in the description. However, I'm going to be doing aluminum wheels today. I am working on my son's 2019 Civic Si. This has aluminum wheels, it has low profile tires, so I've definitely set myself up for the challenge in today's video. Additionally, what I've done, if you are putting tires on your vehicle, I strongly urge you to get an alignment in addition to those tires. That helps protect your investment. What I've done with my son's car is I've gone through all of the alignment adjusting points on that vehicle and made sure that they all move. When you go to do an alignment, if the adjuster can't move, you can't do that alignment. I want to ensure that once I'm done putting these tires on, that it could go to the alignment shop, get the alignment with no issues whatsoever. So I'm just recommending to you that you check your suspension, see if everything's tight. If anything's loose, you want to address that. Zero play allowed in alignments. So you want to make sure that you have no play in your suspension whatsoever anywhere. I've done a whole lot of talking. I'm going to stop doing that now and we're going to get to the action right now as I replace the tires for my son's 2019 Civic Si. Today we will be installing these Michelin Pilot Sport All-Season 4s. They are 235 by 40 by 18. These tires were made in the 21st week of 2026. It is late July 2026, so these tires are only a few weeks old. We are removing some offerings from Bridgestone. These are the Drive Guard Pluses, it looks like. Same size. Here's my tire changer. It is the R980DP from Ranger. Now this Civic has rubber valve stems, and that's important because if these were metal valve stems, it could indicate that these have TPMS sensors. These wheels do not use TPMS sensors. This car uses the ABS sensors, speed sensors, to tell whether or not the tire is low and set the TPMS light. So no TPMS sensors here, but if there were TPMS sensors, there's special consideration that you want to take when you're changing these tires. I have a video in the description about that very thing. But I'm just going to remove the valve cover, the valve core from these valve stems, and I will be replacing them afterwards. But for now, I'm just going to remove the valve cores to quickly get the air out of the tires. I'll be using this valve stem core removal tool to do this with. And then I keep the caps and the valve stems just because, well, you never know when you might need something like that in a pinch. First thing I'm going to do is break the bead off of the tire. So in other words, I'm going to get the bead off of the wheel here. I like to look for any wheel weights or anything on the outside. Obviously, there's no wheel weights on the outside of this one, but if you look on the inside, there's a wheel weight right there. We'll be balancing these tires afterwards, and it's very unlikely that this weight is going to be beneficial to us. So removing it now is going to be helpful. This is the bead breaker. So we're going to place this right in between the wheel and the tire like that. And I'm going to show you the pedal to step on in order to get it to work. In fact, while I'm here, I will show you all three pedals that work this machine. There is a fourth pedal over on this side over here, but that is for adding air afterward. But these three pedals are fairly self-explanatory from the pictures. This one is for breaking the bead. You can kind of see it there. This one works this center opening and closing of these jaws to mount the wheel, and this spins the thing around, which is what you're going to need to do to mount and dismount the tire. We're going to step on this pedal. It's important not to squish the wheel because obviously that's not going to break. So step on the pedal. Pops it right off the bead. But just one in my mind isn't enough. I like to do a couple just to make sure that the tire is fully off of the bead. But you're not done. That's the front. You got to do the back too. Now our tire, you can probably see, is off the bead, which is what we want. As I mentioned, the first time using this machine, but I've got a pretty good idea of how it works. We need to get this stuff out of the way, and we can move it all out of the way. So now we have a nice clean area. There are two ways you can hold the tire on this machine. You can grip it from the inside of the wheel, so in other words, these will come out and push against the inside of the wheel, or you can make them come in and grab the wheel. Frankly, if you can make it come in and grab the wheel, it's better for two reasons. One, I think it holds it better, but two, these little bits right here can sort of scar the inside of a wheel. Sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes there's just no room between the tire and the rim and you've got to go on the inside. But when you're mounting or when you can, try to grip it on the inside instead. And to do that, that opens those up. We'll leave them open like this, but I'm going to put the wheel on here so that these come in and grab right here on the inside of the wheel. See if they're all in. That one, not so much. I think they're in there now. I think job one, we need to figure out the placement of this guy. I think that does it. And I think if I turn this, I can lock in that position. Yeah, I can. Just want to spin it, see how it looks on there. Okay, looks fine. Now the spoon is our friend. So this is where it all happens. So one side needs to be down off the wheel. I'll use my helper. I'm like, wait a minute, I could really use some help over here. Well, I think I have it if I do it right. Is it this one? No, that one's to help it go on. Again, this is the first time using this machine. Sorry about that. Let's just try this real quick. And this can push this side down for me, maybe, I think. Now that is something. This is just a soap and water mix. Part one is complete. Now we need to do it again. Did I bend my tire thing the first time using it, or is it already bent like this? Don't know. Yay! We have successfully removed our first tire. We're not just gonna put the tire on, no. We are gonna clean this wheel to make sure there's no leaks or anything in the future. To do this, I just use an angle die grinder with a roll lock. Sometimes I do it with it still on the machine. But first, safety glasses. It just shot in my eye first thing. Now, if you've got super expensive wheels, don't do this on the concrete floor like I am. you might have noticed there's already road rash all around these wheels, so I'm not as concerned. I'm not trying to make it worse, but if I wanted perfection here, I'd put this on a piece of cardboard as I'm rolling it, just to try to prevent any potential damage. I don't believe I'm damaging anything now. I'm just putting it out there for you if you need it. There. That took a couple extra minutes, but I think this will go a long way to making sure that our tire stays sealed down the road. I'm going to remove the valve stem now. I will use a razor blade and come in just underneath the valve stem and very neatly decapitate it. That cuts out the old valve stem. That's my new valve stem as compared to the old. Same size. Something about our valve stem here that we're going to do before we install it, we're going to remove the core. I don't know how much of a difference this is going to make on low profile tires, but on tires with larger sidewalls, this helps a lot more air go into the tire as you're trying to get the bead to seat. I have other tire juice that we're about to use here in a minute. That can also work for this, but just soap and water. Give it a little lubrication. This is a special tool just for this that screws onto the end of the valve stem. Now I'm not doing that yet, but I'm doing that. I'm going to put it through the wheel. Once it's screwed onto there, you can pull it through, right? That easy. New valve stem installed. Boom. Now I have some tire juice. I thought I was going to be able to just go directly into the goo. I think I'm going to have to employ this guy. Now it's time to get this tire on there. This very clearly says that there's an outside to this tire. Sometimes tires are directional and they have an arrow, so you want to make sure that you mount those correctly. This one has inside and outside. Liberal amounts of lubricant is recommended. One more time. Where's my outside? Outside. Okay. This one usually isn't the problem. Boop. That was easy. The outside, maybe not so much. Some tires have like a little yellow dot or a dot on the tire someplace. What that's for is that tells you the optimum placement of the tire on the wheel, and you want to match that up with the valve stem. So if you see that dot, try and match it up with the valve stem. Now, we get fancy with our tire equipment. There we go. So this, I'm hoping, puts things where I need it to be. This looks like it could go down a little bit though. All right, spin, go on. Whoops. That's not good. That's not good at all. I screwed up, viewers, and it's 100% on me. And that screw up is right there. So I took out part of the bead. You saw it get stuck on here. And well, that's what happened. There's no fixing this. I'm buying a tire here. And I'm sad about that because these tires aren't cheap, but this is on me. So, you know, I got to eat it. But anyway, be aware of this. And I think my mistake with this is not pushing down far enough with my helpers. So I don't think my helpers were providing enough pressure down on this. Also, I'm going to kind of blame the design of this wheel in that these little indentations here and these road rash things here, almost work like a knife edge. So be careful. And I think to prevent, those being an issue is to push down on the tire more. I will circle back when my son comes back after I'm able to get him a replacement tire. Welcome back, viewers. I'm just gonna start over, but I wanted to let you know that, well, what my plan is. This is soapy water. So it's gotten even worse. And I suspect the same thing happened here as happened on the other tire where it screwed something up as far as the bead goes. But I also noticed the brand new valve stem that I installed. Was checking that for leaks also. That guy also leaks. This is what I'm gonna do. This tire, I'm going to dismount. Well, I'm just gonna break the bead on this side. Then I'm gonna switch out the valve stem with a different type of valve stem that I have. Put it in here, fill the tire up, and see if it seals. If I verify the valve stem seats, then I'm gonna take the other tire that I messed up. So this guy here, with that, I'm gonna use this as my practice tire. So if I screw this up, so what? This is my $240 practice tire, which I did purchase a new tire, and now there are 4 new tires sitting over here. When I posted about this on social media, several people said, Eric, why don't you read the instructions? Well, look at this. They're right here. They talk about drop center a lot. So you need the bead to be down here below on this drop center as you're mounting the tire. But one thing that they insist on with all of this, if you haven't read it already, is that the drop center is facing up with this. So wheels traditionally have a drop center. If they don't have a drop center, they're probably not DOT wheels. But anytime there's a narrow side, you want that narrow side at the top so you can actually mount the tire. This valve stem leak may not be the result of the valve stem itself. I'm noticing a lot of corrosion inside the bore where it sits. So that corrosion or that bumpy surface may be why that valve stem is not sealing. I'm going to clean that up before I install a new valve stem in the same way I like to clean the wheels. So maybe that's a new thing I need to start cleaning when I'm dealing with aluminum wheels. And this is just a brush set that I can mount to the screwdriver thing. I was very tempted to put this in a drill to make quick work of this, but then I thought, it's a black wheel. If I miss and screw it up, well, that's on me. But if I just go in there with this guy by hand, I can control it. Given that there's still some bumps in there, I'm just gonna add a little bit of bead sealer. And I know I talk about not using this stuff, but this may be an instance where it's warranted. And I don't mind using it on a valve stem as much as I do on a tire. But I'm gonna put a little bit of this on the new valve stem before installing it. If you're wondering, it's sticky black goo. Dang it. Air goes in a lot quicker without the valve in the way. Do it. You got it. There it is. Let's see if it's leaking now. So far it looks good. Those bubbles that are there are actually from when I sprayed it. They seem to be dissipating and popping. So I think the move is to clean the bores, add a little bit of bead sealer to each one of the new valve stems. Let's do this for real. Oh wow, this thing has chunks. This thing got messed up way more than I thought, or it was messed up when I installed it, because there's a lot. I'm not surprised that this tire was leaking at the wheel. Oh, another chunk taken out right there. Let's practice. We've already done our valve stem, we've already cleaned the wheel, so I'm just gonna come in and try to clean up these rough edges so that there aren't sharp edges when the tire gets installed. The diameter of the inside of our tire is the same as the diameter of the wheel right at the rim. So my mistake last time, I believe, was not having the tire down far enough, because you can see how this drops in here. If the tire bead was in here when I was trying to mount the other side, it wouldn't be up here trying to stretch it. It needs to be below this line. So in order to do that, I'm gonna use my helper arms. Hopefully I'll get them in there correctly this time, but that's the idea. The idea is to get the bead of the tire in below this ridge right here. If not, you'll break it. So we're gonna use our practice tire now. I am not going to use the same side with the damaged area. I'm gonna put it on just the opposite way because I don't care. This isn't being mounted for real. What I'm gonna do this time is I'll install this as the bottom and I'll leave my clean one as the top. And we wanna make sure there is so much lube. We can always wash this off later. In fact, it's mostly soap anyhow. So we don't care if we use an abundance of lube. I want to take a moment here to talk about the positioning of the duck head because it is important. No, I'm not calling you a bad name. This is referred to as a duck head because you can sort of see it, like this is the bill here and this is the head. So that's why this is often referred to as a duck head, but this is instrumental in mounting the tire to the wheel. This machine actually came with two different duck heads. This one is plastic and this one is steel with plastic inserts on the inside of it. Normally you use this one because this one is stronger than this one, but if you've got some really special nice wheels you want to take care of, use this one, and this will help prevent any marring or damage to those wheels. The steel duck head has these plastic inserts that you can swap out and once they get worn out, but this also helps protect wheels against damage. To position a duck head, first start by loosening the lock nut, and you bring it all the way down on the wheel and try to position it like right on the wheel. Then you activate the lock, and when you do, it moves the duck head away ever so slightly from the wheel, and that gives just a little bit of clearance, which is good because that also helps prevent damaging the wheel. You probably saw that moving the lock nut moves this up slightly, and that will give this clearance here. But I still want to give a little more clearance here on the side, and this is how I do that. On the top of this arm, there is this screw that when you run it in, will eventually make contact with the boom here. And there it is, it's just made contact. So once it's made contact, keep an eye out down here, and I want to just move this ever so slightly away from the wheel. And I'll do that by just giving this like maybe a quarter turn or so, and that should be just about enough clearance. That might seem like it's too far away, and maybe it is a little bit, but know that when you put the spoon on here, the tire spoon, it's gonna bend this back towards the wheel, so it will come towards the wheel quite a bit. But if it's too far away, it's gonna be hard to get the tire on and off, so you have to think of that too. You'll basically figure it out, but I think maybe a little bit less than this. About that much is what I like. And that makes it so that the duck head doesn't come in contact with the wheel and cause a problem. Here is where my helpers need to help. Make sure that guy's down. This guy will follow it around. That's the hope anyway. Okay, I'm gonna take this slow too. I'm gonna keep an eye on everything as it's happening. At least try to. Okay, that's below, that's below, that's below. That's on there, that's good. Also, it did say something about this wheel being able to be helpful, but I may be past that. That's down below that rim that I talked about. That's down below that rim that I talked about. Let's keep going. Okay, we're still down below. We need to remain so. So as long as it's below that ridge over here, I'm good. Still below the ridge. Still below the ridge. Okay. That was successful. Pretty sure I did no damage to anything with that. So that was the key. The key is use the helper arms, keep the tire below that lip as it's coming around. That way it's got room to open up around the wheel. And boom, you have a mounted tire. Now I'm going to pull this off of here and we'll see if I've created any damage to the bead. And if I have not, I'm going to call that success. 0 damage. Oh, there is damage. Crap. I haven't won yet. This is stressful, like in ways I can't even describe. Here's the tire I bought. Ooh. I know. We haven't successfully mounted a tire without destroying it yet. That's disconcerting. I'm gonna lube the holy snot out of this thing. That's marked inside. Okay, that sounded very positive, like no damage was done. If we were leaking around this wheel, we'd be seeing bubbles, and I'm not. One tire mounted, I believe with no damage. Just gonna let that sit to the side, let that goo dry up, and we'll check it again. That's two that just popped on there. I think these little grooves here on the outside of this wheel are deadly. Buy stock and lube, that's all I gotta say. The fact that that took so much to bead should tell you how tight these tires fit on these wheels. This button's an air letter outer. I'm taking all the damaged stuff on this wheel and I'm putting it towards this area. This is the first area to get the bead planted on it. So it has, in my mind, less stress. I'm even gonna go so far as to lube the top of the wheel. Lots of lube and helper arms for the wind. And that pop you hear is this wheel seating in. Thank you. Last one. It appears I'm not the only one dealing with this because I just took this guy off and it's got stuff on it. So I think this is a thing with these wheels and low profile tires. Yes! Whew. That is major relief. I'm going for the ear protection. You might have a question about the part of the machine that I just used, which looks just like this. This is for those situations, like you saw, where the tire simply will not bead on the wheel as you're adding air with just the conventional method, just going straight through the valve stem. What this will do, this has a separate tank inside the machine, and pushing this button releases all the air in that tank at once. So it's a blast of air that can go into the tire and force the bead out against the inside of the wheel. That's what this guy is for, and that's what I was using just a moment ago. Do it. Thank you. And that, viewers, is 4 low profile tires mounted on these wheels. Oh, that was epic. Lots to learn there. Man. Not so fast, Eric. So I was checking for leaks around the rim, just to check, and I found a couple. Now this may be just the tires just taking a minute to seal on the wheel, although most times, you know, within a couple minutes, they're sealed. And I'm just checking this one. This is the last one I installed. I'm gonna check the other 3 here in a moment. But the valve stems, they seem to be okay. So I don't see any issues there. But the rest of the tire, as long as that's not something with damage to the bead, I'll be okay. Because frankly, I can go in there with that same sealer that I put on here and then seal the wheel to the tire if I wanted to. I freaking hate doing that. You saw me clean the wheels. That's why I clean the wheels. I clean the wheels to avoid this kind of issue, because this usually happens because the corrosion won't seal against the tire. Well, that wheel is smooth. It should seal. Not sure what's going on, but we'll pop this off the rim real quick just to see if there's a problem with the sidewall. If there is, or the bead, I should say. If there is, I don't know. I'll figure it out from there, but first we need to make that determination. Huh. No way. So there doesn't seem to be any damage to that. Like I can't feel anything in there. Like I would feel it if there were a sidewall thing, which there is not. But the reason I went, is because, look at this. And I'm not sure why they did it. See those little nipples sticking up for the mold? So when they inject the rubber in through ports, and that's what those little things are that stick up inside of a tire. But there's one right inside the bead. Focus on it. So that's not the only one. And I'm wondering if that is causing my leak. You know, because it's sitting on the bead and it's not going to let the bead sit flush. Let's go grab that new tire, or the new tire that I messed up, and we'll take a closer look at that. And this is the tire that I messed up. But look, not only are they there, but there's like little lines. So this almost looks like a leak, like each one of these little intersections. That's all it's going to take. I'm going to reseat the bead and I'm going to let it sit. And I'm hoping that eventually this stops leaking. And there it is, right at that same spot. So it's right at the spot where these grooves, like I showed you, go down in to where the bead sits on the wheel. There's nothing I can do about that other than cover this whole thing with bead sealer, and I consider that a hack. Hate that. If you're like, Eric, the leak wasn't there, it was a little bit off to the side. You're right, because look, these are offset. So this is a little farther forward than what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is here. What's inside the bead is this, and this is just, well, about a ½ inch further forward than where that is. And I think those are leak points, at least for now, until maybe it seals. I don't know. I think the main takeaway is I did not screw up another tire. So no tires were screwed up in the assembly of these wheels and tires during this video, except for at the start. These, we were good. Apparently, I'm not done yet. I let these tires sit overnight, and I wanted to see if that would let the tire beads seat in. And I came back this morning and I tested each and every wheel with some soapy water, just sprayed around the outside of the wheel, and the valve stems. Happy to report, none of the valve stems are leaking. That part is great. But it does appear that there are small leaks, not just on the front side of the wheels, but on the back side of some of the wheels as well. You saw me clean the rims, at least I hope you saw me clean the rims, but I cleaned those wheels. Those wheels were clean when I installed them. Normally, if there's corrosion on the wheel, it will cause a situation like this. So I'm about to do something that makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit, and I'm going to install bead sealer around both the front and back side of these tires, and then, well, I'm not going to dismount them. I'm just going to break the beads, let the air out, break the beads loose, install bead sealer, put them all back together, and then I'll recheck for leaks. I'm hoping there aren't any more after that. But when you install bead sealer like this, you make it really difficult for the next guy when they change the tire, because that stuff a lot of times, well, it's like gooey glue. It just sits on the inside of the wheel. And you really need to make sure you clean the wheels the next time you go to install new tires. And I may very well be that person. So sorry, future me, but I'm gonna do this because I don't want these tires to leak. Just got back from the auto parts store and picked up some actual bead sealer. What I was using was not bead sealer, it was actually for tire repair. This is for doing what we're about to do. The other stuff wasn't necessarily for that. I have also gone through and with compressed air gotten all of the soap and water out of all the cracks and crevices where the rim meets the tire. I want to make sure that that's clean and dry before applying the bead sealer because, well, if you apply the bead sealer to an unprepped wet surface, there's probably little hope that it's going to do its job. So make sure the surface is clean and ready for the bead sealer if you're going to use it. I do not intend to dismount the tires from the wheels. I intend to do the bead sealer without doing that. And this is how I'm going to do it. Break the bead loose. And again, I would like it noted how clean this wheel is. Now, what I've worried about in the past, you might see there's a sticker down in there. You might see that sticker. I've seen leaks around these stickers. I used to take them off. I don't anymore. I'm pretty sure they use that to identify a specific tire for warranty purposes or something like that. So I don't know if removing that's the way to go, but I'm about to cover it in some bead sealer, which is maybe the same thing. But again, the surface is all clean and everything, so I'm going to sneak my brush down in between here and install the bead sealer on this side. Then we'll put it on the tire machine and I'll do the front. That's going to work swimmingly. So I just found a little booger from the applicator for the slime. And I'm wondering if that could be an issue. Like little bits of that have fallen off and gotten trapped down in here. Okay. Now this stupid thing better be sealed now. And I'm actually gonna give it a beat and I'm gonna check this before doing the other ones just to make sure that I'm fixing it. Did I fix it? I don't see any point in checking the valve stem because I didn't do anything with that. And I don't believe that's leaking. Let's give that a minute. Everything looks like it's sealed great. And then I went to get up and I used my hand on the tire when I got up. So I was pushing down on the tire, I had my weight on it, and watch this. You push in on the sidewall at all, it'll start to leak. Look at that. I'm wondering about these tires and these beads and these wheels at this point because I've done everything I can think of to try to make this work. I'm learning a lot with this job, viewers, and I'm hoping to pass this information along to you. Now, I took a little break and I was doing some research. I also reached out to Tire Rack, which is where these tires came from, just to see if they might have some insight into this. They install tires all the time. Maybe they've had issues with these particular wheels. I also searched these particular wheels to see if there was an issue with them. And strangely enough, there came up a recall for these wheels. Has nothing to do with the tire sealing at all, but what it does have to do with is the lug nuts and the way they attach to the wheel itself. There's some steel inserts that go through the wheel. Apparently some of those steel inserts did not get installed and some vehicles got shipped from the factory without those inserts and those wheels can fall off. So that's a super dangerous situation. I'll post information to that in the description, but that has nothing to do with what we're dealing with here. I also looked into Michelin to see if they had something to say, but everything comes back to what I've always been saying is that if you got a dirty wheel, you can't expect the tire to seal. And you saw that I cleaned the wheel. So that I don't believe to be the issue. I think what the issue might be during the application of the bead sealer is, I went back and read the instructions for the bead sealer. What they say in the instructions is if there's a difficult situation like what I'm dealing with now, to not only apply bead sealer to the tire itself, but also to the rim. Well, this leaves me in a spot because do I dismount the wheel that I already had put sealer on and everything and try to reseal it again? Or do I completely dismount the tire, clean the rim, clean the tire if I need to, and then reinstall everything. That's probably where I'm gonna have to go. But what I thought I might try ahead of time, just to make sure that that's gonna lead me to a solution, is I still have 3 other wheels here. So I'm gonna try one of the other wheels. I'm going to put Bead Sealer on the wheel and on the tire, and I'm gonna let it sit. I'm gonna let it sit for a good 10, 20 minutes, and then we'll check for leaks, because what I also discovered was that the soap and the water could go in and interfere with the bead sealer. So if you attempt to check for your leak too quickly, like perhaps I did, that may actually cause a leak, or may cause that sealer to not be effective. I hope that information that I'm passing on to you is effective, and I'm hoping to try it out right now on one of these tires, and we'll all find out together if that's what the solution is. We're gonna set this one aside, wait about 20 minutes, check it for leaks. As I was waiting for the bead sealer to cure on the other tire, I decided to dismount this tire and see how much I had to clean up. Next to nothing. And that also says to me, it's not really sealing well. I'm gonna try to give you solid information before the end of this video as to why this is happening and how to fix it. I've given this wheel about 20 minutes to cure after installing the bead sealer. Let's test it. We're going to keep an eye on this area as well as this area. Give it a minute and see what we see. I think we solved it, viewers. I am having a very hard time finding bubbles. I know you see some here, but that's just the nature of what this is. But I'm not seeing them sort of pile out like they do when there's an air leak. So if there's an air leak, it just bubbles up and it'll definitely show you. You've seen it already. In fact, you've seen it with this tire, but at least this side, I haven't checked the other side yet, but this side, this is that problem area from before. And then over here on the other side. And you'll be like, Eric, what about all those bubbles? Well, this is what I've been doing. I've just been taking some water and just sort of rinsing it away to see if it comes back. And then I'll sit and observe for a while and wait to see if something does come back. And so far, I'm waiting a long time and I'm not seeing like little bubbles coming out. And if I do see anything, it's super minor, like not worth worrying about. So this means I think I'm on the path. I'm going to flip this over now and check the backside just for good measure. But it seems that if you're applying the bead sealer, it not only needs to go on the tire, but it needs to go on the wheel as well. At least in my case. Eric, you're not on the cardboard. You're correct. And that's because I didn't want to get my cardboard wet. Here we go. I may have a little too much soap in my water. And that may be contributing to my paranoia. I don't know. But like in an area like this where I'm seeing a lot of bubbles, I'll just come in and again, I'll rinse it out. There's still soap there. But if there was an issue, I believe I would still see bubbles happening. And I don't. Okay, we've got a fix. And I've got 3 more tires to do it to. I'm going to show you something. Look at that. That is from the tire goo applicator. Pull this guy out, or the parts of it out. So do you think that wedged in between the bead can cause a leak? I do. So watch out for your tire applicators. It could be leaving junk between your bead and your tire, possibly causing leaks. Learning all kinds of stuff today. Hopefully I won't have to use that again anytime soon. I'm gonna let all 4 of these sit overnight. I'm gonna come back in the morning, I'm gonna hit them with the juice, and we'll see if they're leaking. And if they're not, well, we will close this video and I will make another one about balancing them. See you tomorrow. Welcome back, viewers. It is the next morning, and I have come back and I have soaked the inside of the wheels with soap and water in hopes to find any leaks that may be around these wheels. And so far, it doesn't look like I have any leaks on any of these wheels. Now for that final palm test, I guess. Oh yeah, I can get it to do it a little bit. So if I push it on the sidewall, I can get it to leak a little. That is not encouraging. And I just found something else. I just purchased this yesterday, and the entire time I was applying it, I'm like, man, the last time I did this, it seemed like there was this stuff was a lot thicker. Well, again, I just bought this yesterday, so it'd been sitting on the shelf for a while. Well, I did read the instructions, you know, talking about everything that you need to do, but if you go over here, what's right there? I didn't see that. And now I'm wondering if I didn't shake it up properly, which means I didn't apply the bead sealer properly. But here I am again. We've got tires that were brand new, rims that were cleaned, and I'm still having issues with these things sealing. I know that if you take a low profile tire like this and hit a curb, you could very likely pop it off the rim and it will lose air. I've seen it more than once. Is this just that? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? Is this not an issue? Because it doesn't appear to continue to leak after I pushed in on it. But then I have to ask about the bead sealer, and then I'm coming back to shake well that I did not do. So if I don't shake it well, the product's not going to work as intended. That's on me. And I did it twice. I didn't even see that. I was too busy focusing on the instructions. I missed that whole warning / you should do this kind of thing. I don't know what to do here. But I can say this. I've been in communication with Tire Rack, and they've been awesome about this. So good on Tire Rack for that. But I've got to do some thinking to figure out what I'm going to do next here. Decisions have been made. I have a very fancy tire gauge that measures down to the decimal as far as pressure is concerned. I'm going to put all these tires on the car, set them all to the exact pressure, mark those pressures down on a piece of paper, come back tomorrow morning, check each and every pressure, and see how much has changed overnight. Then we'll go from there. To the alignment shop with you. Guess who's back from the alignment shop? Yeah, that's right. It is the next day and the car is back. And you've probably already picked up on the fact that it went to the alignment shop, which means they could have set the tire pressures. Yep, this is not helpful at all. And I was afraid of this, and it's my bad because I never told them not to set the tire pressures or touch the tire pressures. And whenever you do an alignment, tire pressures are something you should be adjusting. So they were doing their job. And as I said, I never told them not to do anything, but you can clearly see that the pressures got more overnight, and they're very close to what I had. Their gauge just might be a little bit off from my fancy digital one. Doesn't matter. But I'm not seeing anything that says that these tires are leaking at this point. First up, I didn't just ship this car and give it to my son and make him drive 2 hours to test out whether or not those tires were sealed. What I actually did was I reinstalled all the wheels and tires. I set the tire pressures exactly how they were supposed to be, which is 35 in the front, 33 in the rear of that Civic Si. After doing that, I went into the infotainment system and reset the TPMS. That's the way you do it on that vehicle. It's not a scan tool thing or anything. You actually go through your infotainment system, go through, tell the TPMS system that, yeah, all the tires are good. Remember this. And from here on out, monitor everything. And that's what it does. So if a tire goes low after that point, you're going to know about it. To that end, what I did is I took it on about a 40-minute test drive and drove a while to see if that light would come back on. It didn't come back on during my test drive at all. Very encouraged by that. Now you may be wondering, I sent it off to the alignment shop and did tire pressures and everything before I sent it there. I got it back and those tire pressures were slightly higher. Not higher, just slightly higher. And that got me to thinking, why would that be? Is there just that they had a tire pressure gauge that was a little bit off from mine? Or could it be more likely that that's just heat that builds up inside the tire as you drive it? So if tires are sitting and you haven't driven the vehicle that day, those tires are cold. Once you start driving the tire, that tread contacts the road and starts to heat up, and it gets to a certain operating temperature, if you will. So I think my short drive to the alignment shop and back was enough to raise those tire pressures about 1 psi each, because if you look at those numbers, they're very close. I think that's further proof that I had sealed those tires and had accomplished the goal with this whole video, which was to show you how to mount low profile tires onto aluminum wheels, which again, I'm using my tire machine for the first time, and I'm sorry about that, but we all learn things together, I think. So I think it's a good possibility that my overnight test with those tire pressures was just heat that was in the tires, and everything was fine with that. In fact, it's been almost a week now since I put those wheels and tires together and sent my son away. He's reported no issues whatsoever with a TPMS light or any of that stuff. So that stuff is fixed. So then why was I getting bubbles and readings and things that were sort of indicating leaks? And I think this is an important part of this video. I think you can create your own false positives. And I think what I was doing with my soap, hang on, I think I put too much soap in my mixture here, and that extra soap makes it so that anything I spray is going to have bubbles on it. I want those bubbles to form when there's a leak. I don't want the bubbles to be there to start with, because again, I might be chasing leaks that aren't necessarily there. I think part of this video was doing exactly that. I was paranoid about the tire sealing and what have you, and I was seeing demons. I went looking for demons, and I found demons. So if you are using soap and water to look for leaks, like I often do, make sure that your soap is, make sure it's diluted enough to where it's going to give you actual readings instead of possibly false positives like I did. At one shop where I used to work, we used to have a tub where you could submerge half the tire down into that tub and run it through looking for those bubbles to be coming out. There's no soap to indicate where it came from necessarily, although you could put a little soap in that water and it would show a leak. The point is, submerging the tire in water, you could maybe use a kiddie pool or something like that, can also help you find leaks in addition to this. So if you're not getting any traction with the soap, maybe add a little less soap to your soap and water mixture, or perhaps try a different method like submerging the tire in water instead. Let's talk about that palm test really quick. I think that's normal. And I know it's weird to say that, but low profile tires are designed for handling. And that's the reason why they have that low sidewall. A wide sidewall, that gives you more cushioning. That gives you more suspension, so that gives you a softer ride. Low profile is exactly the opposite. There's nothing there to give you that cushy ride. There's also nothing there to give as you're taking a corner and that wheel is moving in and out of that tire because of the G-forces of the car. So the car wants to keep going in a straight line, but you just made a turn. The bottom of the tire is sticking to the road while the wheel is trying to push out the side of the tire as you're making that turn. So that sidewall is an integral part of that suspension and the way it reacts to a turn. The shorter that sidewall is, the more it's going to react. The taller that sidewall is, the less it's going to react. It's going to be gushy in that sense. So I think the only place on a low profile tire that you have any give is in that sidewall. And me pushing on that one spot, I think allows just enough movement to allow just a little bit of air to come out between the wheel. Now, circling back to using my bead sealer correctly, what I was hoping is that after installing that bead sealer, that tire would virtually be glued to that wheel. It was not, because I was able to push on it with my palm. Now, was that a question of me not letting it cure long enough? Not shaking it before applying it? I'm not really sure, but in my mind, that tire should have been glued to that wheel. It wasn't. But I do believe that palm test pushing on the side of the tire like that, I think that's normal. Now let's talk about what we've learned. I made notes. Number one, clean the wheels. I've said this before, if you don't clean the corrosion off the aluminum wheels, there's no hope of these things sealing against that wheel. And I thought of an analogy for this. You wouldn't do a head gasket without cleaning the surface of the block and the cylinder head before putting those two things together, would you? Well, you probably wouldn't. And the same thing is true for this. This is a gasket just like any other gasket. If you think about it, it's just round and rubber and fits on a wheel. So Make sure you clean the wheels. Check the valve stem bore. That's a new one on me. Now, I have worked with aluminum wheels in the past, but I guess I haven't had them long enough to experience enough corrosion to cause those leaks. Whenever you're dealing with tire leaks or you're installing new tires like I did, I had the best of intentions installing new valve stems, but inadvertently created a leak because of that corrosion. So make sure you also clean the corrosion out of the valve stem bore, and possibly you may have to add a little bit of sealant to that to get those to seal. Make sure that you're below the drop center when mounting the tire. And what I mean when I say that is make sure there's enough room for that tire to get over that wheel. If part of that bead is not below that drop center, that tire is never going to go out of that wheel without being damaged. Incidentally, this is my practice tire. I just took another look at it before doing this clothing, and guess what I found? I found no damage on one side of the bead. I put the tire on exactly like I took it off. So in other words, the damage that I found, I didn't cause it that time, I caused it the original time. The other side of the tire is fine. There's no busted beads or anything on that. So my practice tire did work out, but I'll admit, I was super nervous. I didn't want to spend another $240 on a tire because I screwed it up. I didn't want to end up doing that. Here's a couple of other things that I ran into on this vehicle and these wheels and tires specifically, and that is wheel design. You might notice all those little dips and everything around the outside of that wheel. I think those are potential places for the tire to get snagged on when it gets installed. Even more so if there's road rash on it. So like this car, it had that damage around the outside of the wheel where it came into contact with a curb or something at some point. And those little metal bits acted like a serrated knife as I was installing the tire. So I found it beneficial to smooth out those rough surfaces before installing the tire. I think that will help save you from doing any damage to the bead like I did. Even if you're doing everything right, if you're trying to put it on a knife edge, well, you could possibly cut and damage it. So watch out for that. Make sure you read the directions, all the directions to whatever you are using, whether it be the tire machine or whether it be the bead sealer. Either one of those things can be a point of failure if you don't read the instructions and use them properly. So make sure that you know what you're using, how to use it, and how to do it correctly. That way it will be effective. Watch out for a tire lube applicator, especially if it's new like mine was. I lost a few of those loops in between the tire and the wheel, and that could cause an air leak in my mind. Maybe it'll squish out, maybe it'll go away, but still, in my mind, I'm thinking if I'm putting something in between the tire and the wheel, that's a potential leak. So watch out for that, especially if you have a new tire lube applicator. I realize I've thrown lots of things at you in this video, and I hope it was helpful, especially if you're a tire installer, if you're installing tires for the first time and you're dealing with low profile tires and aluminum wheels, and stuff can get expensive really quick. My hope is to help you avoid that expense and to help you avoid those issues that I had in this video. I hope watching it helped you do exactly that. Links in the description to additional information, tools, stuff like that, so check the description for more stuff. EricTheCarGuy.com is also linked in the description, and that's there for you all the time if you have automotive questions. Thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I will see you next time.